What's a video game that will forever be in your heart no matter what age you reach? Story 1. Roller Coaster Tycoon. Love to see all the RCT fans. How about the fact this game used to come in boxes of cereal? Anyone remember those glory days? Taught me how to run a business and remove naysayers. We have a special ride for the naysayers. Story 2. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. That soundtrack was top 5 video game soundtracks of all freaking time. For me, it's top 2, the other game being THPS 4. Story 3. 007 GoldenEye. Third year university, Friday nights, 2 large Pizza Hut pizzas, stuffed crust meat lovers, 4 of us, and an N64 with 4 controllers we rented from the Blockbuster downstairs. Grenade launchers in the temple. Forever etched in my brain. I love how everyone who's played this game has their fave multiplayer config, and there's so many iterations. Pistols only, license to kill. And no picking odd job at the last second Tyler, you MF cheater. Story 4. Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. This was my first ever Zelda. They had a GameCube and Zelda collection bundle around 2003/2004 Christmas time. I remember playing Smash Brothers and my brother and cousins always liked Link and so he was naturally my favorite too. I remember writing to Santa and taking to my parents about Zelda every day for like 3 months leading up to Christmas. I was lucky enough to open up the GC on Christmas morning. When I originally started it I would call and talk to my older and favorite brother who was enlisted in the USMC and give him updates and ask for his help. I don't know what he was going through in life at the time, post 9/11 and I was a kid, but he always would listen and made me feel important. Whenever he had a chance to come home he'd help me play and to overcome my fears, Kakariko Village well, and give me moral support when fighting my first bosses etc. My brother was soon deployed to Afghanistan and I remember playing OOT late into the night thinking about what he's doing overseas and how much I missed him. I remember thinking that I had to beat this game before he came back home from deployment because he'd be so proud of me and it'd be one of the many things I can fill him in on. I was in 4th grade. Sadly I never got the chance to catch up with my brother as he passed away. I recall random phone calls throughout the day from my brother overseas which seemed to have no rhyme or reason to it and my parents would always be the ones to speak with him if they were lucky enough to pick up. Whenever I hear the Kakariko Village, the Lost Woods, or Choker Forest music I always get taken back to that time in my life with my brother. This game helped me to come to terms with a lot of new feelings in my life like sadness and anger. I remember thinking that Link's just a 10-year-old boy like me and look how brave and strong he's been even after leaving so much of his life behind him. I guess now that I am writing this I can see how I may have thought of Link as my brother or maybe a mix of us both. There's a lot of parallels and intricacies I can't really put into words as I'm getting ready for work and I don't want to feel sad this early. Hopefully you get the idea what I'm trying to say and why this is also my favorite game. What beautiful memories you have of your brother and your time together. Appreciate his service and sacrifice, may he rest in peace. This was really sweet to read, thank you for sharing. Teared up reading your story. Thank you for sharing. Story 5. GTA Vice City and San Andreas. For me, it's just GTA in general. I've played every version since I think GTA 2. I bought a PS3 just to play GTA 4, and bought a PS4 just to play GTA 5. I'm turning 50 this year and can't wait for GTA 6, and will buy whatever PS is available then. GTA 3 underrated. It is underrated in my country. Everybody here only ever cared about Vice City and San Andreas. As the first GTA in 3D to release in the era where old 2D series were being converted to 3D, GTA 3 was especially mind-blowing. I think many people feel the same about Mario 64. I do, too. Story 6. Chrono Trigger. YouTubers discovering this game to this day, and still blowing minds. That game was crazy dense. Those days when game companies actually cared about the experience they were selling were great. I'm in my mid-30s I still remember the first time Frog slashed a path in the mountains with the Masamune. That moment is forever. Story 7. Halo, Combat Evolved. This 100%. Old enough to have the OG console and play on the Duke controllers. Remember endless nights playing against friend via LAN/system link. Pizza, soda, and all the insults you could rattle off. Yes sir. I was a sushi chef at the time. You could tell which cars in the restaurant parking lot belonged to my fellow sushi and hibachi chefs, because they'd each have an Xbox controller in the passenger seat. Every night after work, particularly in the off-season of our touristy hometown, we'd go over to the house shared by two of my co-workers with a LAN set up to two large TVs. 4-on-4 insult fests that had me driving home at 2 a.m. with a face sore from smiling/laughing. Some of my absolute favorite times. Story 8. Final Fantasy VII. When we talk about gaming history, this game is the reason you now have AAA games with multi-million budgets. This game cost $40 million and started life in 1994, 3 years before its release date. Game production prior to FFVI was a very different industry. This game is brilliant on so many levels. It shares an interesting point in time in game development. I think even today playing this through, it's an amazing title. I remember when PlayStation Magazine wrote this game was originally for the N64 and it's now being developed for the PS1. 3-disc game, never saw that before either. I think it was £49.99 on release in the UK. I guess was quite annoyed when this went on a platinum release, but my original disc was better. Resident Evil is another genre-defining moment here. I look at modern-day games, some I truly detest. Modern Warfare, do not care what anyone says here. MW2 original, best in the series, everything else poor imitations. Maybe it's nostalgia, maybe it's the time. There are genre-defining moments on the PS1 that I feel even modern games just cannot compete with. Currently 30 hours in grind on Starfield. The very first video game I ever fell in love with was the original Final Fantasy on the NES. I beat it at all of 7 years old. Grew up with 4 and 6 on the SNES and I love those games. But nothing will ever compare to the first time I turned on my PlayStation on Christmas morning and fired up my copy of Final Fantasy VII. The jump in tech from the SNES to the PS1 was absolutely mind-blowing. It was like a whole new world had opened up. I've never felt anything like that level of awe in the nearly 30 years I've been playing video games. Story 9. World of Warcraft, it consumed so many hours of my 20s. I've got memories of so many raids and our late-night conversations. There was drama and romance. 2 of my guild mates got married, one of them faked his own death, then pretended to be his own son, then got caught and admitted to it all. Some of them actually grew up in our guild. The game itself was great, but the social aspect made it an amazing time. Probably the best game I have ever played, mainly because of the people I was playing with. Tried to get back into WoW Classic, but the magic had gone. Everyone knows everything about the game, there's no magic of discovery. No, where's Mankrik's wife, or some high-level warlock summoning an internal in Crossroads? Story 10. Pokemon Gold. Aside from a few simple educational computer games, it was my first real video game. It blew my little kid mind all those years ago, and I enjoyed returning to the game via Pokemon Heart Gold several years ago. I know that it has its flaws, but it has so many fond memories for me.